Hello and welcome to ATN World News. I'm Leah, and it's great to be with you, the viewers all around the world. Today we have with us Mr. Dan Russell, singer, songwriter, producer, concert promoter of the big festival Soulfest. Over the years, Soulfest has had some great bands like Skillet, Toby Mac, Third Day, Jason Upton. I mean, about 25,000 people show each festival once a year. Now, Dan right now has a song called Echoes that's topping several music charts. So we're here to talk to him about both topics. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Oh, it's good to be with you, Dan. I know that Dan has been through a lot recently with his health, but he's doing fantastic now. People have been praying, and he just has a wonderful testimony. I want to go ahead and get into this. This is amazing. You have a song that I don't know if you knew that it would do this or not, but I know it catches some artists by surprise when their song just takes off and goes viral. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, it's the song is called Echoes, and if you're whatever platform you listen to your music on, it's there. I had a old friend give me a label deal, which is different than an artist deal. It just means I get a higher royalty rate, and I can do my own A&R. And so this day and age in music is very questionable. It's virtual, it's digital, there's no bricks and mortar stores. It's a whole new ball game. And so we all decided that I put out a record as the guinea pig. And if it made any sense, I would consider, developing the label further and inviting other artists to participate. But yeah, they went to the label is Universal Music Group, and the name of the actual label under that is MI5 out of London. And they went to New York, and like all records do, from major labels, they put together a campaign for 4 to 8 weeks on national rock radio. That's the chart that they submitted me to, and it went into the top 20 right away. And in 8 weeks, it's still in the top 20. I think it peaked at 11 nationally, but in some markets like New Orleans or Miami or Seattle, it broke top 10, LA, New York. And they followed it. It just kept going and going. And the marketing money from the label curtailed after about, I think, 8 weeks. And because everything, Google, every format, you buy their attention. And that's what all the major artists do anyway. And monthly, give them a tablespoon of cash. But after 8 weeks, it kept going, and now it's in the 24th week. And I'm, competing. I guess you could call it competing, but I'm in the playlist with Smashing Pumpkins and Foo Fighters and all kinds of bands at that level. And I'm an anomaly because basically radio programmers are saying, "How's this possible? Who is this guy?" And they look me up on Wikipedia. That's where they ground you. They say, "Does he have any presence on the internet globally?" And then they continue to watch and see what's happening. I'm trying to push them a little bit so they can put more into it, maybe go to an additional format. Um, and so, yeah, it's a bit of an anomaly. I get I had been getting the radio charts from different cities, and it's nice to see the song is getting 1,250 to 1,750 spins a week. So it's not like the old days. When you were on the radio, you in a certain town, you got your butt over there and did a show. But and it doesn't bleed through. So if you were to go to my Spotify account, you'd think like there's nothing happening at radio, but they're all autonomous from each other. And that way they can control if you want to be popular on Pandora or Spotify or any of these other formats, you got to pay us too. And I just didn't want to have fake or bot um, viewers, listeners. I wanted to try to grow it slow and get you know some real listeners, some people that were interested in the lyric, interested in the music, and I have another record coming out next year and a book, and so it's much better for me as a artist to have a foundation that's not fake. Um, so, but if you go to YouTube, you have got 20 plus videos there. Subscribed. All this action on against the algorithm. I feel like the algorithm keeps you down unless you buy in, and and um and that's kind of what I've been seeing. So anytime someone likes something like on your videos or makes a comment or subscribes to your channel, subscribe, follows me on Spotify, all that stuff continues to hit at that algorithm, which keeps art young or non-popular mainstream artists out. And so Echoes is the song that they're playing, and I'm really glad about that.
So,
But
Dan, tell us about the deeper meaning of echoes.
well, Echoes was it was a bit of voyeuristic kind of approach to his song. I grew up in a big family, five sisters, two brothers. There were a couple other foster type brothers with us for a time, and I just imagine my mom upstairs in the bed her bedroom with my dad and saying, what's going on? We're so far from where we were when we met. All we are is a kid factory, and it's their issues seem to, like an avalanche. They get off the school bus and here comes another level of avalanche. So I basically wanted to listen in on that conversation and reflect it with my mom saying something and then my dad answering back. What's it like when you grow a big family and you start out as with all this promise of being just who you are, and all of a sudden you become a mom machine or just a dad machine. You just work to bring money home to pay for food and mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the song. It's one of reflecting back to when we were younger and the kind of love that we experienced and felt back then.
So,
Um,
it's a song that people can relate to.
yeah, I think so. If you ever stop and pause or when you look in the mirror, you go, oh my goodness. And the inside, we're like probably that 20-year-old that looked out at his week or his month and said, I'm going to take over the world, or I'm going to do this, be that, et cetera, et cetera. I'll go here, go there. And then you find yourself years later going, where did all the time go?
Yeah, I tell you, that's life is but a vapor, isn't it? As they say. Um, One thing I find fascinating is Soulfest that you've put on for years, but to to garner that many people that will come out to one event, you have several stages. You have, gosh, the best bands that you're offering the people. You've got Soulfest 2025 coming up. Tell me a little bit more about Soulfest.
Well, Soulfest emerged when I worked in full-time mainstream music, and my mom broke 100 pounds when she had her eighth child. She'd tap her index finger on my chest and say, "You don't condescend to where you came from." And I came from a suburban evangelical Baptist background, but like most kids, if their parents vote one way, they go the other, and they're just trying to um, find their own identity through separating from what their household was. But my mom would talk to me about, think about something that you could offer this community and do it with love and respect. And when you figure that out, you come back to me. And so I thought about what I could do because I don't enjoy making Christ an adjective, such as, a Christian concert or a Christian book or a Christian plumber or a Christian barbershop. I I, I really believe on not putting our light, hiding it under a bushel, getting out into the world and loving whoever crosses our path, because it's truly phenomenal how in a day's time you can get all kinds of divine appointments that come unknowingly to you. Well, so I came up with this concept of, I've always heard about the soul, God saved my soul. And that's doesn't our bodies essentially they pass, they get old, and then our spirits, our soul goes to be with God. And I pondered the reality that I never got that kind of concept when I was going to church as a kid. And a lot of the contemporary Christians that I knew in my circle or met, the soul wasn't part of the conversation or the lifestyle. And then of course you meet people like a waitress that just present and engaged, and you meet a cook, a chef, a mechanic, anybody that's on their toes and connected and gives you a soulful, that's a soulful conversation, and it's refreshing. And so this bottom line after I added up all the data was coming out with, if I can promote uh, a 3-4 day event where I've captured you can't go back to your televisions, et cetera, et cetera. And we could discuss the fact that you have an eternal soul within you. What is your rapport like with that soul? How can you live a soul connected lifestyle? How can you become a risk taking, soul connected believer in God's unconditional love for everyone? And what would it happen if you got 5, 10, 15,000 people at one time for 3 or 4 days, and you kept that rhetoric right on their nose? Would they go away back and become just more religious and this is my tradition, I grew up in this type of a traditional religious family? Or would they become soulful and soul connected? Would they learn what it means to pray without ceasing? Would they know what it means to have divine appointments with strangers that are also souls? When they look at people, they don't see, a human. They see an eternal soul. The sanctity of life goes up when it's valued as eternal and valued as something that God sent Jesus to reclaim and redeem. And so that's where Soulfest emerged. And I aim that conversation at the artists that come on the stage that are traveling all over the place playing Christian concerts. I also encourage the artists to drop the adjective relationship with God and play wherever they can play. Some of these artists are truly on par with their mainstream counterparts, but they never play in those mainstream audiences. They just developed an audience that's really quite exclusive to the whole Christian subculture. And we're reliant in those situations on, you've probably heard the term friendship evangelism. So one of the attendees brings his best friend who's not a believer, and eternal consequences begin to unfold. And the people come to know the Lord that way, but which is, I think, is great. But I think it's also great not to say, hey, I'm a Christian artist, I don't want to get played on the number one station in LA. I don't want to compete with the Foo Fighters, or I don't want to be in that community in any way, shape, or form. I always say, you've got talent, you've got a great song. Yeah, get out there and do a cannonball into that. So, anyways.
Well, I agree. And if you've got talent, man, and a really good song, a lot of people who don't even believe in God have come to my YouTube and said, "Oh, this artist." They were like, "Man, he's crazy good. Oh, I like this song. Oh, I like that." And they're not, and they will state right at the very beginning of their comment, "I'm not a Christian by any means, but."
Yeah.
This song or but this artist is so cool that the music draws them, in towards the light. And so you've certainly been a huge contributor to this world for good. I'm going to briefly touch on this because I know it's probably private or personal. I don't want to you say anything you don't want to, but Dan just blew me out of the water with what he went through medically, and he's a walking phenomenon. Really, don't you think so? To get through all of that stuff, brain
I
stem and
think I
all this
think
stuff,
I
to
think walking is a generous word. I think wobbling is probably
okay, wobbling phenomenon. Oh, whatever. But if you want, we've got about 5 minutes. If you want to go ahead and give us a little something on that, that'd be great.
well, I had a brain stem stroke, which took out 350 muscles and attacked my autonomic nervous system. And at 63, and I found myself not able to. Was able to think in my head, but I couldn't talk. When I spoke, it was real staccato. I didn't have any control, and never mind 350 muscles. And I did about 16 weeks of hardcore in-house rehab, and I had to make a choice about 3 weeks in. It became obvious that I was at a crossroads in my mind, that I was either going to be bitter, and I had a shopping list of all the reasons why I was going to be angry and bitter. And then there were good, solid reasons. I've been playing guitar for 45 years, and now I couldn't even look at my arm and say anything to it. It wasn't communicating. I was either going to be bitter or I was going to be grateful. And when I looked around, what I was going to be grateful for wasn't my ability to write a song again, or play guitar, or walk a mile with my wife, or anything like that. I was going to be grateful for the fan in the room, the pillow under my head, clean sheets, the food I got. When I drilled down on the food, I found that I grew from the quality of food that the hospital and nutritionists would provide for me. But I just started doing my gratitudes, and that's something that I've used as an exercise for a long time. And it was, you say 10 gratitudes out loud so it can go into your noise-filled head. And by the time you get to number 10, it's almost like taking a shower from a hot day, a full day of sweating and digging ditches in your life, and gratitude just wash over you, and you kind of realize that, these sneakers that I'm wearing, they got a hole in my right sneaker, but man, thank God for these sneakers. They're comfortable. Or this fan feels so good. And I start with little things, and I try to do gratitudes once or twice a day, especially if the devil, who's always not very far away and whispering things like, "Hey, you've done enough. You should. Have you heard of Netflix? They got some good series. You just spend more time on Netflix." And so I would do the gratitudes, and the devil would dissipate, and I would my prayer life transformed. I Before my stroke, I was a Christian. I believed in all the things I was talking about and doing, but I never had this intimacy at this level. And I reflect on that in my music, and I think people are moved by it because there's an honesty to it. It's not just raise your hands and aren't we special and aren't we lucky to know God? But it was different. It's been different, and I've really enjoyed it. I'm not, again, I'm from Boston. I was a liberal, you know, vote blue. I believed that big pharma swore by the Hippocratic Oath, and I believed the civil servants were by served us, and they were by the people for the people. You only got to be a congressman or a senator because you were the most honest and smartest in the class, and that you were selfless because you were serving us. So that was the fog I've been living under, and through the process of getting clipped with this stroke, I see things differently. I can't help it. And so it wasn't an awakening that, you know, like when you woke up this morning, oh, I'm awake now. It was sort of a gradual, merciful conversion into um, common sense, deductive reasoning, et cetera, et cetera. But
I thank you so much for sharing that with us because it seems as though so many, even strong believers, are going through the worst times that they've ever gone through in their life. There seems to be hard-hitting warfare such as they've not known before. And your words of encouragement and great godly instruction about gratitude. Wow, those are healing words. That's healing people. That's giving them a coping mechanism. That's the one true coping mechanism. Prayers to God, listening to God, and this gratitude. What you said was even the teeny tiny small things. Let's just see the wonderment in that. Let's just see how wonderful and gracious that is just to have this pillow. No, that's true. One thing I'll make real quick. I was in a situation recently where I had to move and somebody stole my storage unit and all of this stuff. And I had to have a little rehab done for my legs and neurology in it. So I was coming to this new apartment. It was like, they said, "Where are your shoes?" I went, "Oh my gosh, I don't have any." And, and you don't really think about things as small as shoes, but really they're big. And I'm sure you have too. We've served in third world countries where they don't have shoes. So if you do have that comfortable pair of sneakers, that truly is a blessing. Dan, we loved having you on. We wish you the best with all of these things. Now, you can people look up his websites for Soulfest for the 2025. Look
that's
up Dan Russell's website. And is there anything else you want them to look up, Dan?
well, the soulfest.com,
Yeah.
and I'm in retirement mode, but I'm still active involved. But God has put a couple of beautiful people in my life to take all the minutia and carry it forward. And they're doing a whole overhaul of Soulfest, and we got some great artists there like We the Kingdom, Switchfoot, a band called Kane, and you know, several artists. Great workshop. It's family oriented. We're not just trying to do music with bands playing against each other from different stages. We want to try to open things up more for meeting people, having conversations, and you know, um, so that's Soulfest. It's the soulfest.com. And also my website is Dan Russell Music. And on there you can surf around. I just put out a new video, and I'm working on a new record, and I got enough strength back where songs are emerging again. And that's a real blessing. And for some reason under in my condition, um, I don't want to be self-deprecating on it, but you know, I feel like I'm an anomaly. So God, what do you want me, what do you want of me? And how do I get out of my own way so I can just, you know, do what you want me to do? And so I'm working on this new record, and we got some post stroke written songs that they have their own character to. And I look at them and think, wow, I can't believe that's emerged from me in this condition, but it is. And I have a son who's 31, and he's my litmus test. He's my producer, and if I suck, I blame him because he's got control. So, but it's a beautiful ministry to me to be able to work with my son. His name is Jesse Mark, and so we'll see. The future's exciting. It's eternal, and you if you believe you have a soul that's eternal in nature, you don't have fear. Does not have a grip on your soul. It's got a grip on your mind when you let it, but the future is exciting. The day is exciting. God's love is unconditional, not conditional, and it's perpetual. And I'm a victim of that great affection. So I just want to stay in that surrendered position to that affection and let it go through me and into me, but through me. So,
Oh, sounds wonderful. Again, people, be sure to check out these websites. Dan, been a pleasure. Until next time, I'm Leah reminding you that God loves you.